Well, in this video, I will be discussing regarding spinors and Lorentz transformations. So previously we discussed that how rank 1 spinors denoted like this, which were some sense unnormalized Hilbert space of dimension 2 objects. So they were complex 2-component vectors, and we saw that they were related to the this vector, which is a vector in R3, radial vector, and the relation between R3 vector and a C2 vector is of this form, where we used the Pauli spin matrices sigma x, sigma y, sigma z. And the action of rotations were performed by SU2 group elements over this rank 1 spinors, and these R3 vectors are rotated by the SO3 group elements. And we saw this is the structure of these elements, and there was a 1-to-1 correspondence or homeomorphism. Actually it was a 2-to-1 correspondence, and so that we said that SU2 is a double cover of SO3. Now we will try to understand how we can relate spinors to 4 vectors, like here we related to 3 vectors. So for this we first see that any spinor S, suppose under Lorentz transformation, it transforms via a 2x2 matrix of like this. So this arrow is under Lorentz transformation or change of the inertial frame of reference. Now this particular outer product of this form, it will transform in this fashion. And in particular we see that this outer product that is here, it is a Hermitian matrix. So we can ask for a more general transformation where we need not have this outer product but rather any Hermitian matrix. So that's what we will do now. So we see any 4 vector that has 4 components, t, x, y, z, these can be encoded in form of a Hermitian matrix X. So there is a 1-to-1 correspondence between a 4 vector and a Hermitian matrix, which can be written in this particular form that I have written here. So it is simply summation over the vector components, 4 vector components, and sigma mu, where mu can vary from 0, 1 to 3. And sigma 0 is identity, and other sigmas are the 3 Pauli spin matrices. So this kind of a 1-to-1 correspondence between a 4 vector and a Hermitian matrix X is what that will be useful to understand spinors and Lorentz transformation. So if X changes in this particular fashion, where X is this matrix now, then what is the desired property of this lambda transformation? Because this is the transformation that we have to find. The desired property will be actually to preserve the determinant of X, because determinant of X, det X, or where X is this, is nothing but t square minus x square minus y square minus z square, which is the Minkowski 4 vector dot product. So Lorentz transformation preserves that, so this lambda must preserve this particular determinant. So this gives us a constraint on lambda because the determinant must be same. So the constraint simply is that determinant of lambda times determinant of lambda dagger is equal to 1. What this means is determinant of lambda is a unimodular number e power I lambda. So it is just a phase. Now it is a phase, but we simply restrict the phase such that the determinant lambda is 1, where we put the rest of the phase dependence into the flag notation that we have already discussed while talking about this rank 1 spinors here in the previous video. Anyway, what we can say that the only restriction that is getting imposed by the Lorentz transformation is that the determinant is 1. So it is a 2x2 matrix which can take complex values, because X is Hermitian, it is over a complex space. So such that the determinant is 1. This means it belongs to a group of SL2C that we will see now. So we associate a 4 vector with a matrix X, Hermitian matrix to be precise. It is Hermitian precisely because these t, x, y, z are real. So we associate it with this matrix, and hence we associate a Lorentz transformation with the SL2C element. So X, this set of Hermitian matrix X that we have, is what we call as rank 2 spinors, because they obey the spinor transformation properties, which is simply transformation by an SL2C element. So with this we can do a small example, such that suppose this is a SL2C element that is exponential power minus the Pauli matrices, and then this is SL2C because simply the determinant is 1, and then what we can ask is how X, the Hermitian matrix X, changes under this particular matrix. So we perform this change because we saw that the matrix changes in this fashion. So what happens is, if we multiply in this order, because we know X is nothing but this particular thing here. So this is X, this thing, and we also know lambda. So we can multiply these three things and it is this matrix. This is also a Hermitian matrix. But now, as Hermitian matrix has a 1-to-1 correspondence with a 4 vector, we can try to extract that 4 vector by decomposing this Hermitian matrix into identity and the Pauli matrices. But the important point here is this 4 vector, that is X prime, which is associated to this particular Hermitian matrix, is related to the 4 vector that is associated with X, that was initial matrix that we had, via exactly a Lorentz boost along the z direction with rapidity rho. So this means if the 4 vectors changes via boost, we are seeing that there is a change in these rank 2 spinors or the Hermitian matrices using SL2C elements, particularly this one in this case. So this gives us the boosts and rotations, which are both SL2C elements, as the 6 kinds of various Lorentz transformation. And this is again a 2-to-1 mapping where 2 SL2C elements are connected to one element of a Lorentz group, and hence SL2C is again a double cover of Lorentz group, like the SU2 was a double cover of SO3. So up until now we have understood that a spinor X S that we have, this is a spinor, we can associate to it a Hermitian matrix X in this fashion. But you see, the spinor S is such that the Hermitian matrix will automatically have a determinant 0. This is easy to check because you see, you can simply perform the outer product A star B star multiplied with AB, where this is the spinor. So, and then we can see that exactly we will get the determinant of this matrix as 0. And now what this means is that with this X we can associate again a 4 vector. We discussed that the Hermitian matrices and the 4 vectors are in 1-to-1 correspondence. So overall this 4 vector has the this 4 vector is a null 4 vector that we can associate with this spinor. Why this is so is precisely because the determinant of X is 0. This determinant of X is 0, and it is 0 for every spinor. So so it is easy to check here that suppose you have this as S as AB, and then you have this as A star B star, then SS will be we have to just multiply them. So let us see. So it is A star B star, and then it is AB, so it is mod A square, and then so this goes with this, and then second one is this. So actually I'm taking it in opposite order, so that's why it was not. So actually it is like this B star. So here also it will be A star B star. So now what this matrix will give us is mod A square, AB star, BA star, and mod B square. And now you can check the determinant. The determinant is 0. So this means that a null 4 vector can be represented by a spinor, and correspondingly every spinor is represented by a null 4 vector, and we can extract that null 4 vector by particularly this. This is the 4 vector that we have. So now with this understanding, we understand that rank 1 spinors are associated with null 4 vectors, and rank 2 spinors, which are Hermitian matrices, they can represent any arbitrary 4 vectors. But now the point is we can do a bit more than this. So suppose we have two spinners, and corresponding to the spinners we can have two null vectors. So so corresponding to a spinner, so whenever you will be given a spinner u, you can perform this computation u identity u and u sigma vectors u. So these are the x mu, the 4 vector. Now if we do x dot x, where this is a Minkowski dot product, we will see it is 0. So that's why this spinner is always associated to a null 4 vector x mu. So these are the two null 4 vectors. Now we can add the two null vectors and subtract them. But now this a and b are not necessarily null vectors. They need not be null vectors. But now if this particular condition, that is the dot product of u and v, is not equal to 0, in other words these spinners are non-orthonormal spinners because these 4 vectors are non-orthogonal, then what will this mean is that a dot a and b dot b, they will be non-zero. In other words, we can use a pair of non-orthogonal rank 1 spinner to represent orthogonal 4 vectors. So a and b are the orthogonal 4 vectors because a dot b is 0. So a dot b, where this is the Minkowski dot product, is nothing but u square minus v square, where the squares are again Minkowski dot product, that is 0 because each of them are individually 0. So a pair of non-orthogonal rank 1 spinner can represent a pair of orthogonal 4 vectors. So with this we understand important relationship that a spinner is in 1-to-1 correspondence with a null 4 vector. So now we move further. So now we try to understand a few more properties. So for a general element lambda belonging to SL2C, so lambda can be represented as A, B, C, D, such that the determinant, that is AD minus BC, is 1. So for such a lambda transpose times this particular matrix, lambda is always this matrix. So this kind of a property, lambda transpose, let's call this matrix as epsilon. Lambda is epsilon. Lambda transpose epsilon, lambda is epsilon. It is quite similar to the transformation, Lorentz transformation, when we say that the Minkowski metric G mu nu transforms such that under Lorentz transformation the metric is invariant. So similarly this epsilon that we have here, this 4 matrix, this particular 4 matrix, this is called a spinor Minkowski metric, corresponding to a Minkowski metric in corresponding to the Lorentz transformation for 4 vectors. So now once we have this Minkowski metric, we can use this metric to perform inner products of different spinners such that the inner product is Lorentz invariant. So let us see. So this is a spinner, it transforms in this way. This is another spinner, it transforms in this way. But if we can do the dagger of this, so it will transform in this particular fashion. Then we can define this as an inner product. So it takes the second vector conjugate, and then we see that under Lorentz transformation what happens is that this goes as lambda mu, and this will go as it will be the daggers conjugate, so it is just a transpose. But this particular thing is simply epsilon, so it preserves, this inner product is preserved under the Lorentz transformation. So otherwise this is an Lorentz invariant inner product. So here one thing is important to mention is that if V is suppose AB, rank 1 spinner, then V like this is A star, B star, then V star is nothing but, it is simply AB, which is V, this is V star, I mean it's the same notation, but this is nothing but V transpose simply. So with this understanding we see that this is one of the Lorentz invariant inner product. Consequently we can look also at this particular inner product here. So you see the two inner product are a bit different, this one and this one. This under Lorentz transformation is also invariant, and this is also an inner product. So we have two different kind of inner products. And I have shown that how we can find the Lorentz transformation property precisely using this transformation. So under Lorentz transformation we have this thing, and we also have this particular thing. And so now what we can do is we can use this particular equation here, that is the spinor Minkowski metric, and we can take a complex conjugate on both sides. Then we come to this particular equation, and then we can take an inverse of this lambda dagger to finally get this equation here. And we can use this equation to particularly prove this last line here. So the gist of the thing is, this is also a invariant inner product, and this is also an invariant inner product. But in this new kind of an invariant inner product, we see we have a new object. This is a new object. This is a new object that we have here, such that this object under Lorentz transformation transforms in this particular fashion. And that is this is the Lorentz transformation. So the vector we saw that the spinor undergoes Lorentz transformation as this, but this particular object under Lorentz transformation it goes like let's see, so it was lambda dagger inverse times epsilon s star. So it is transforming like the inverse of dagger, this kind of a Lorentz transformation. So this object is what we call as the left-handed spinor, and the other one as the right-handed spinor. So you see, until now we had rank 1 spinors, but under Lorentz transformation we see we have two different kind of spinor. One is a left-handed and another one is a right-handed. So now we remove the bracket notation, and we simply write down the fact that, so this phi r is a normal spinor, so it is nothing but phi r, and under Lorentz transformation it transforms in this fashion. And this Lorentz transformation can be written like this, that we saw just earlier. And we have something called as a left-handed spinor phi L, which is actually of this form, which is of the form of epsilon, you can say phi r star. This phi L under Lorentz transformation transforms like this fashion, which is this. So you see, the only difference between the left-handed and the right-handed spinor is that under the boost, under boost they transform in a opposite fashion. This is quite obvious from this particular representation of the boost, where if we do a inverse, we will see that we get a plus sign, because these sigmas are anyway Hermitian. So we have to take a dagger and then inverse. So with this we have seen these properties of left-handed, right-handed spinors. We have seen the Lorentz transformation properties also. And given these two different kind of spinors that we are talking, we can make a new object. We can get a 4-dimensional representation of the Lorentz group using a four component complex vector, which is of this form. It has the upper part as a right-handed spinor and lower part as a left-handed spinor. And under Lorentz transformation, the right will transform like this, the left will transform like this. So that is nothing but this particular matrix, and this spinor is what we call as the Dirac spinor. So when we will again discuss the Lie algebraic procedure of these various kind of Lorentz representation, we will see that we get the Dirac equation where we have the equation evolution of this Dirac spinor, which is nothing but a bispinor which has two spinors stuck to it, but these are different kind of spinors. Also we can look further at this particular object, and we can use these transformation rules, these two transformation properties, to see that this object is invariant but under Lorentz transformation, but this object is nothing but psi dagger identity, where I is 2 cross 2 matrix psi, and you can name this matrix as gamma 0, and you can define this as psi bar. We see that this thing is a Lorentz invariant quantity. It is invariant under Lorentz transformation. So that's all for this video. In this video, we discussed Lorentz transformation properties. We discussed the Minkowski metric, various kind of inner products, and some of these properties. This will be the most important gist is that rank 1 spinors are associated with these null 4 vectors, and rank 2 spinors or the Hermitian matrix is associated with arbitrary 4 vectors, and a pair of non-orthogonal rank 1 spinor can be helpful for representing a pair of orthogonal 4 vectors. So given these non-orthogonal, that means this particular property, we are guaranteed that A dot B is 0, but A and B both are not null vectors. So that's all for this video.